Welcome to the Daily Bollocks, a structural deconstruction of the $10.6 trillion asset management engine. This is the story of the mechanical rewiring of global capitalism. We are no longer looking at a simple collection of investment firms. This is the systemic architecture of the universal owner. It is an evolution that has fundamentally altered the way money, power, and influence move through the modern economy. To understand the scale of this operation, consider the $10.6 trillion in assets under management. This single pool of capital is equivalent to more than half of the entire United States gross domestic product. At the helm sits Larry Fink, the functional commander of a consolidated capital pool with unprecedented macroeconomic influence. Together with Vanguard and State Street, this group, known as the Big Three, collectively holds roughly 25% of the shares in almost any given Fortune 500 company. The mechanism behind this concentration began with the invention of the index fund in the 1970s. This changed everything by shifting the industry from active investing, which relies on high-fee short-term speculation, to passive investing. Passive investing uses algorithms to hold a fraction of the entire market indefinitely. While it is marketed as a low-risk strategy, the concept of passivity has become a vital legal loophole. It provides a shield that allows these firms to bypass traditional anti-monopoly scrutiny. In a dispersed market, you do not need 51% to have control. Academic studies confirm that 5% ownership is the functional threshold for boardroom supremacy. While retail investors are fragmented and hold negligible power, a consolidated 5% block can steer a company. Look at the case of Amazon. While founder Jeff Bezos holds 9% of outstanding shares, the Big Three mathematically overshadow his influence with a combined 16% stake. This concentration is fueled by the great power transfer. Capital from everyday workers flows through a pension power funnel. Whether it is a 401k, a public pension, or a tuition fund, the money moves through managers into index funds to buy corporate equity. But there is a catch. As the capital flows into the market, the voting rights are siphoned away from the workers and consolidated at the top. The asset manager gains the power while the worker provides the capital. This leads to the Passivity Paradox. Legally, these firms use the passive shield to claim they are unengaged in day-to-day corporate mechanics, which qualifies them for reduced government oversight. However, the practical reality is the engaged operator. In a single year, BlackRock conducted over 1,500 private executive engagements. These meetings happen behind closed doors, using massive voting blocks to steer management strategy far away from public view. This control creates a cyclical feedback loop that realigns corporate incentives. Because asset managers wield such dominant voting blocks, they approve massive stock option packages for corporate executives. This mathematically incentivizes management to prioritize immediate share returns and short-term profit optimization over operational longevity or labor costs. This cycle ensures higher market values, which in turn allows the asset manager to extract more fees from their increasing assets under management. We are witnessing a paradigm shift from shareholder democracy to a shareholder oligarchy. In 1945, household ownership of stocks stood at 94%, creating a distributed governance structure. Today, household ownership has collapsed to roughly 40%. The modern index fund has functionally inverted the democratic model. Instead of a vehicle for distributed capital, the system is now highly consolidated under institutional asset managers. The rhetoric of the universal owner suggests that what is good for shareholders is good for everyone. The mathematical reality proves this is an illusion. The top 1% of the population owns 50% of all corporate equity and mutual fund shares. The top 10% controls 86% of the market. Meanwhile, the bottom 50% owns virtually zero shares. Policies pushed by universal owners benefit only a fraction of the population while frequently penalizing the rest. One of the most significant downstream impacts is structural wage stagnation. Because a corporation can only increase profits in a few ways, the universal owner applies relentless pressure for infinite short-term yield. Squeezing workers is the most accessible lever for inflating returns. Labor costs are suppressed to guarantee the required yield for asset managers, turning wage stagnation into a core component of the investment strategy. This has created a pseudo-monopoly canopy. By holding dominant concurrent stakes in all major competitors within a sector, true market competition becomes a mathematical threat to the portfolio. This neo-monopoly allows the big three to hold massive stakes in Nike, Adidas, Lululemon, and Under Armour all at once. This same canopy covers the top 5 United States airlines and all major banks. They no longer need to merge because the profits flow to the same few players, regardless of who wins. The anti-competitive logic is simple. If Company A lowers prices to win market share from Company B, consumers get better prices and competition flourishes. However, for the universal owner who owns both companies, profit margins drop across the entire sector and their total assets under management decrease. Therefore, universal ownership inherently dictates an anti-competitive market logic. Shareholders no longer root for their specific company to win because competition destroys overarching portfolio value, quietly driving up costs for consumers across the entire economy. To protect this system, a regulatory capture architecture has been built. A revolving door spins between BlackRock and the institutions that create global policy. Since 2004, BlackRock has hired more than 84 former government officials, regulators, and central bankers. Their influence extends into the United States Treasury, the Federal Reserve, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Economic Forum, where Larry Fink holds a board seat. This reach includes the central banks of Canada, Sweden, and Europe. They are effectively writing the rules that govern their own operations. This influence was used to defeat systemic oversight following the 2008 crisis. When the government created the Financial Stability Oversight Council to monitor entities that were too big to fail, BlackRock responded by doubling its lobbying expenditure. They launched targeted ad campaigns in Washington to dodge banking oversight. They secured a loophole allowing them to self-certify their passivity. By describing an organization that is so big it presents a systemic risk and then auditing themselves to guarantee immunity, they have defeated traditional oversight. A regulatory collision is now taking place. Regulators like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and the FDIC are attempting to close the passivity loophole. Their goal is to force asset managers holding massive banking stakes to be regulated strictly as systemic risks. Standing against them is the moat of the Investor Management Alliance. This defensive structure is designed to protect the self-certification loophole through heavy, entrenched lobbying to maintain a path of unchecked expansion. The realization of the shareholder oligarchy rests on 3 pillars. First is the mechanism where passive index funds siphon corporate governance while leveraging public capital. Second are the externalities, including the mathematical enforcement of neo-monopolies and structural wage suppression. Finally, there is the moat of a self-auditing revolving door regulatory apparatus aggressively protecting an infinite financial loop. The system is not broken. It is functioning exactly as it was engineered. The ultimate endgame is the infinite loop of financial ownership. This is the pinnacle of systemic insulation. BlackRock's largest investors are Vanguard and State Street. Vanguard's largest investors are BlackRock and State Street. This circular ownership creates a self-sustaining loop that sucks capital inward while mathematically detaching from traditional market forces or external accountability. The financial sector effectively owns itself, creating a closed system that plays all sides of the game and ensures it can never lose. Thank you for watching the Daily Bollocks. Like, subscribe, comment. See you next time.